This is the KUSI News at 6:30.
Welcome back. Thank you for joining us as we continue waiting word whether Chris Dorner is dead or alive. I'm Sandra Moss along with Ross Becker and Alan Denton. And our guest right now is Anna Yum. She's a former Riverside County Assistant District Attorney. Appreciate your time. We've been talking about what happens next, and if he is found dead in that burned out cabin, it's case closed. If he's alive, then it's a whole new ball game.
Right.
Let's talk about what led up to this. The manifesto, his beef with the LAPD. They've said that they're going to open perhaps an investigation. He claims that he was mistreated, fired unjustly,
right.
Racially motivated firing.
Right.
LAPD doesn't have a very good reputation in years past. What do you see happening here?
Sure. I mean, I read the manifesto, and it was a lengthy manifesto, and he was very articulate, very eloquent in terms of him mapping out his arguments. And I think that the biggest distaste that he had with LAPD was twofold. I think he said there was racism, and then I do believe that he said he was wrongfully terminated, that he had to clear his name, because the entire essence of his manifesto was that he told on his field training officer, because he said that his field training officer had allegedly kicked a schizophrenic during the course of an arrest. He reported her, and then his belief was that LAPD took her side over his, and at some point he felt he was wrongfully terminated because of providing a false report on an officer. And so he brought this up in front of the Board of Review. And then Lieutenant Kwan at the time, Monica Kwan's father, was his attorney. He was a retired captain. He went in front of the Board of Review, and then Mr. Dorner thought that Lieutenant Kwan did not have his best interest in mind. He thought that he was not helping him. So that's what led to the timeline of him targeting Monica Kwan and her fiance at the time in Irvine, and then him leading up to his manifesto about how LA cops are corrupt, how there's so much corruption and racism, stemming back from the Mark Furman days with the O.J. Simpson trial, as well as Rodney King. And so when he talked about that, I think that LAPD, there was just so much exposure, and now they're under a magnifying glass, especially when you hear reports about them shooting at innocent civilians. There was a mother and a daughter that got shot at, and they were both shot, and they were in a truck that looked like Christopher Dorner's truck. So I know that LAPD is getting a lot of heat right now, and now I think that's the prudent thing for them to do, is to perhaps reopen the Christopher Dorner case to see if any of his arguments have any merit to them.
And it's probably not just for Dorner, but there are other officers who filed these same kinds of complaints that are not doing what Dorner allegedly did.
Exactly.
They're handling it in different ways, but any one of them could do the same thing. I mean, there's a lot of frustration. It's drip, drip, drip of frustration after a long period of time. So you see this as going forward, maybe another commission. There have been other commissions looking into the activities of the Los Angeles Police Department. Could something like this lead to a new commission being formed?
Potentially, especially because all of the havoc that he's created. I mean, he said in his manifesto that he was on a mission, essentially, and that he was there to clear his name, and he didn't care if he was dead or alive. In fact, I think he said something about self-preservation wasn't even important to him because he was already dead inside. So his mission was to expose the LAPD for the alleged corruption and racism, and I think that this is what his manifesto was directed towards. So that's an excellent question. Is there going to be a separate commission to look into the possibility of whether these allegations have any merit? Was he wrongfully terminated? Was it a situation?
And if there is, then he's accomplished his goal.
Right. One aspect that really intrigues me about this case is that it may not be closed after all, even if he is found deceased in this cabin, because, as you mentioned earlier, the FBI suspects that he may have had an accomplice in all this.
Right, right. What I've read from the FBI is that that a federal complaint was filed for him evading prosecution. And then before there was any kind of information that Mr. Dorner was in Big Bear, they had indicated that there's probable cause to believe that he had fled to Mexico. And they also indicated that he may have had an accomplice with certain initials. It was not divulged as to what this person's name was. So the feds must believe that someone else is involved. And I think...
So they've got some leads somewhere that's fairly strong, or pretty strong, apparently.
Right, exactly. And one could argue that they have some information that perhaps has not been exposed or revealed to the public, but they have some information to believe that Chris Dorner had someone working with him on the side. Now, the other argument, of course, is, well, how credible are the feds when they thought that he fled to Mexico, and clearly he was not in Mexico. But at the same time, they have some information that leads them to believe that Christopher Dorner perhaps was not alone in his journey and his mission of trying to get his manifesto accomplish.
Well, and in a sense, it would make sense because he did need, you know, obviously some assistance in maybe gathering the ammunition and gathering the supplies and the things that he needed, and even an escape route had he not gotten trapped in Big Bear.
Right, and that's what I was thinking about too, because if this is Christopher Dorner, of course it hasn't been confirmed or not, but he has an arsenal. He has ammunition. There was reports that hundreds of rounds of ammunition were fired, and he clearly was on the run. So who's helping him with this? Is he doing it by himself, or is someone on the side helping him transport everything? And that'll be very interesting to see if those reports do surface and if there is any merit to that, and if that can be confirmed, because you're right.
See if they pan out.
The case may not be closed then.
It's a fascinating case from a legal standpoint and from a psychological standpoint, and we've been talking about that, and just from an emotional standpoint with police officers involved and this whole community feeling of fear. So,
absolutely.
Anna, thank you so much for being here, former Riverside County Assistant District Attorney.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it.
We're going to take a break and we'll be right back. Stay with us.